There's a new concept for building an entirely AI-generated operating system, like Windows, Mac OS, iOS, but just straight out of nowhere. You gotta see it. Whatever you want to call these things are a thing. Can you imagine how little energy that's using? It's the helium keeping it up. This Week in AI video is basically a bunch of weird videos where it's what kind of toilet paper would you want, or bed sheets would you want? And I think it's stupid, but I also keep watching it, and that's why it keeps going viral. Did you know that a solo indie developer pushed 47 lines of Python code to GitHub, and 6 months later he generated $2 million from it? That is the power of artificial intelligence for a single person to build tremendous wealth right now. That 47 lines of code made a single developer $2 million. Scientists from OpenAI, Google DeepMind, Anthropic, and Meta have abandoned their fierce corporate rivalry to issue a joint warning about AI safety. I don't know how many wake-up calls we need, but this is pretty crazy stuff that's happening. Google DeepMind has now launched an AI that can help historians restore. Now, we're talking about connecting the deep past to the present. It's very cool stuff. Yuval Harari has some thoughts about whether or not an AI agent should actually be able to own its own bank account. I also wanted to get your opinion on this. It's something I've been thinking about a lot. So what you're looking at here is a new research project. It is called Physics X 3D, and it is physically grounded 3D asset generation like you have never seen before. Dream Poster is a new AI model that takes an image that you would normally say, it's okay, and turns it into something that truly looks like an advertisement. Pretty interesting use case. Of course, we have to talk about the Quantum Magazine article and the important news about how AI has come up with a way to experimentally understand the physics of the universe in a way that probably would not have been done by a human. This is really innovative stuff for the first time. There's a big Trump announcement with new guidelines for how America can stay first in the AI race, and how the big unknown factor for the US is really the power grid. If you haven't heard of it, we're gonna look into the Tesral ideology. This is actually news to me this week, but it's a Silicon Valley belief system, and we're gonna look at if it really is far right or not. Finally, I want to talk about why it is that actual AI models seem so susceptible to the same psychological manipulation that humans are. To me, that's also a clear differentiator on why they're not programmed. And most people don't seem to understand that, but they're learning, and they're learning in the same way we are, with a lot of the same mistakes, but with way more power and way more scale, and that's just such a different thing. But first, if you want to support the channel, I would appreciate it if you could navigate on over to patreon.com/DylanCurious and subscribe. It's one of the best ways to support the channel. I have 104 members right now. I'd love to get that up to 110. It's as cheap as $3 a month. But even if not, I just appreciate you making comments, engaging with the content, sharing it, all that stuff. Oh yeah, or you can hit that join button right here on YouTube. It's basically the same thing, joining a membership. Also, we should check up on Alan's conservative countdown to AGI, still at 94%. But we did get a new video. Oh, and you know he always has the most interesting videos. He finds stuff that most people don't, and doesn't even have that many views. All right, what do we got here? Dancing Ing-dong, X-dong, X-ing-dong era. I'll just call it a Chinese robot for now, but man, that thing can dance. What's your opinion? You think better or worse than the Tesla dancing robot? Oh, it's doing the superhero pose at the end there, though. That's pretty wicked. Okay, so let's see what Alan says about this. This is the lab's full-size bipedal humanoid robot L7, the successor to Star 1, and it excels at delicate tasks like folding clothes and industrial work like sorting, and it is powered by a single end-to-end embodied vision language model called ERA42. Pretty impressive. It looks like there was also an update talking about the Frontier models achieving that gold medal math performance. Yeah, that was really impressive also. All right, I want to start by showing you this really interesting generative operating system. Normally I would save this for the more research part of the video, but it kind of blew my mind to think that in the near future, what an operating system is, something that seems so stable, and my apps are there, everything is organized, it's very programmatic because that helps me feel like it's safe, could just all be generated like an image, all all my apps. Imagine web browsers and productivity tools, documents, not necessarily programmed to do things, but just generated. Okay, move your mouse here to interact with Neural OS. The neural model will render in this area. Here goes the mouse. There it is, connecting to Neural OS. This is all generating. The movement of my mouse is following what I'm actually doing in real life. And now I'm going to click on this Firefox web browser that is just generated. And look what happens. There it is, a web browser just generated. I can click on another tab. As I'm typing, it's kind of gobbledygook because it's just generating everything, which is hilarious. Like, I'm not even surfing the internet. It's not practical in so many ways yet, but just imagine where this could go. You say entertain me and it invents something like a YouTube, and it's got an interface that's something like a YouTube, and it generates content which is something like you would see on YouTube. You bring up a Google Doc and try to be productive, and it just does what it thinks is productive things. So the way Neural OS is working is it's a blend of recurrent neural networks and diffusion-based rendering to render an entire operating system's GUI, the graphical user interface. It's predicting screen frames directly from user actions like mouse movement and keyboard input. It was trained on a massive data set of Ubuntu desktop recordings generated both by random scripts, AI agents, and people. So it's learning how an OS feels. And I feel like that might be one of those layers that sits on top of other programs, or when it doesn't need to generate something out of nowhere, it needs to go talk to some kind of a program. That's what it could just create from some sort of API without a GUI. I don't know where it's going, but it's interesting. Okay, give me your honest thoughts on this thing. They're robots. The helium keeps the legs up and then the legs move. They're robots, legs. I can't imagine something that uses less electricity than this to move around. I like this comment. Do you have pets? Kinda. They move like drunk college kids at the park at 4 a.m. Kinda. Whimsical robot alert. Oh, do you remember that episode of The Simpsons? Wasn't that some kind of machine that like had some dirt on him or something? Someone left a message and he's like, get back here. Not necessarily AI related, but buoyant robots. They're a thing now. But this week in AI video had all sorts of things pop up in my feed that showed me how creative AI can be in terms of reimagining the reality around us. A lot of them were people getting in beds made of different materials that would be impossible. This one's an example of the different toilet papers that what they would look like if they were made from stone, cactus, glass. Ugh. I mean, look at this guy, Satisfy Scope AI. He has videos on like which bed you would sleep in. Snow bed? Nah, too cold. And you're sleeping sideways, bro. Bread? That one's closer, better than snow. I guess I'd rather sleep in the bed made of bread. Nope, not doing the water. But you can see the way the blankets go over the people is still pretty messed up. I am super impressed with VO3 and all the tools that are out there, but there's some physics there that just don't work for me. Anyhow, enjoy it now because that trend will be over next week. So this is the 47 lines of code that made one developer $2 million from AI. Yash Bhartra broke it down, and I found it fascinating and also something I think we could all learn from. So the idea was painfully simple. Automatically summarize customer support tickets using GPT, right? Then classify them into buckets: bug, feature request, or billing issue. This seems like something like Asana or ClickUp would just do, but this is just connecting two things, one smart thing and one classic thing. And by doing that, this simple script would save lots of people lots of hours manually dealing with these questions. So this simple code was packaged into a REST API. Then he used Fast API to deploy it at $10 per month on a VPS and monetized as SaaS with tiered pricing. It was a problem fit. It was not over-engineered. It was productized as prompt engineering. It was fast to integrate. He could hook into Intercom, Zendesk, Slack, etc. with a webhook. And he needed no sales team because everyone who used it saved time and talked about it. I feel like there's a lesson to learn there. Someone out there is going to make a bunch of money doing something like this. Hopefully it's you. So let's talk about this big monolith of a paper that came out. Scientists from OpenAI, Google, DeepMind, Anthropic, and Meta, they all are concerned about AI safety. Chain of thought, moderatability, a new and fragile opportunity for AI safety. And look at the names on this. There you can see Amazon, DeepMind, Google, Anthropic, Meta, OpenAI. Let's see. And how does the public feel about this? Is the warning going to maybe change things? Is it going to help the world? CJ Wid says, good thing we have some of the most reckless and desperate greed barons on earth behind the wheel of this extremely important decision. Okay. All right. I know how you feel. Brand New Dinosaur says, people aren't even good at living in this reality anymore. Layer upon layer of delusion is not doing our species any good. I am disappointed in our self-absorbed materialistic worldview. It's truly pathetic. People don't even know how to relate anymore, and now we have another layer of falsehood and illusion to contend with. Fun times. All right. I don't disagree, but wow. Yeah, you just kind of laid it all out there, didn't you? But of course, what is the paper actually about? And my really quick summary of it is that we just need to put more effort into not making them as efficient and profitable as possible, but making them kind of verbose, kind of big, exceptionally heavy, but more explainable. So transparency comes at a computational cost. It comes at an architecture that's not optimized to its fullest. So unfortunately, there's always going to be that tendency that somebody who wants to use a tool to make money and doesn't want to spend extra money knowing how it's making money is going to be incentivized to cut corners, make decisions without knowing why it made the decision, without the extra accounting, I guess you would say, to see like how it is making its decisions. And this paper hopefully can at least make it so the frontier models, the biggest companies in the world, might think, okay, there's such a big risk of this getting out of control. We can do it as long as everybody's slowing down together for the good of the world, then we can do it slower. We'll see if that happens. But that is why the paper has drawn endorsements from some of the field's most prominent figures, including Nobel Prize laureate Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI. All right, just coming hot off of the new Jurassic World movie, I've been thinking a lot about archaeology, paleontology. So it was kind of fun to read that Google DeepMind has a new model out there that really will help with those industries. The model is called Aeneas, and it transforms how historians connect the past. So it is the first model that was built specifically to contextualize ancient inscriptions and helps historians better interpret, attribute, and restore fragmented text. So Aeneas uses advanced AI to quickly find textual and contextual parallels from a massive database of Latin inscriptions, helping to restore missing text, date inscriptions, and even determine the geographic origins of different items. It's trained on a curated set of over 176,000 inscriptions and can process both text and images, offering historians a powerful new tool and a user-friendly open access option. Also, one of the things that's really neat about this is, unlike some kind of AI systems that you might imagine would just look at something and give you an answer or put it in a bucket, it will read something and explain its thinking. I might, let's just do an example. Say you find an old script and it says, well, this could have been from this era because that aligns with what this king wanted from his citizens, but it also might align with this area because the way it was written looks more like something I saw from this other example, and then it will point to that and give it sort of evidence. So it is a really interesting tool, not just doing things, but kind of talking, exploring, thinking along with the paleontologists or historians to help them understand what's going on. Although I said paleontologist because I saw Jurassic World, but obviously there is no writing in 250 million years ago. So you know what I mean. By the way, I think it was these scenes with the Quetzalcoatlus that were the most terrifying, interesting, and fun ones to watch in the whole movie. Of course, I don't know why Scarlett Johansson made this moment, why she was questioning what they were going to do with all that stuff. But anyhow, such a serious moment. You got to understand, these are birds, and they're picking up food that is human size all day long and eating it. They're carnivores. Humans would have no chance against something like that. See, I feel like if you're running from a T-Rex, it might just ignore you because you're not that much food for it. But these things, no, like, we are their snack. They're like, well, perfect. All right, let's ponder a question from Yuval Harari. I'll let him speak first.
It's a very practical question. We are very close to the point when you can tell an AI, go out there, make money. Your goal is to make $1 billion. And one of the things about money, it's a very easy goal to define.
Okay, so I would be curious your opinion about this. I'm thinking that if there is a human and they can set up a chat GPT and it's an account and they're authorized, then maybe there could be accounts, but they would still be attached to a person, but it would be clear to the bank that they're being run by an automated system. So maybe we could still have a level of accountability if somehow it's making money in an improper way where the account could be shut down or the money could be returned or somebody could be prosecuted. So there would be that urge not for the person to prompt the system to go out and do illegal things to make money. Like you can say this bank account is allowed to have money. It's run by an AI agent. It will go out there and do work, but it also has to maybe have another layer to it where how it's making money needs extra reporting. It's AI. It can go ahead and report constantly, right? That might cost a bit more money for the person running it, but if it's out there doing business and we want some kind of security, then maybe it also reports how it's working. That's my first thought. I haven't really heard many people talk about this or give their opinion about this. The comment section's pretty much all I've got to go off of. Interesting thing is, if there's safety precautions, why not? AI already handles crypto. If so, the government and communities of coders and players in the field must write down rules and apply them to all involved. Also arguing why it doesn't even matter. Humans can still own the accounts and then delegate the management. It's a good point. Maybe you don't even need rules because how could you enforce them in the first place? Although I think you probably still could to some degree. I do understand that it would be very hard and people would find a lot of ways around it. Advancements in technology is inevitable and agents already exist. It's more about regulating the need for identity, ownership, and control of human rights, including assets, and creating a safe landscape for the next generation, emotional and psychological. Oh my gosh. Yes, we should allow it if it makes money. That means the AI is giving value to someone through its service or product, so it adds value to society. Easy as that. I've heard that for universal basic income, giving money to people actually helps the economy because then somebody has something to buy from the rich manufacturers. So I guess if AI is making money and then it's out there spending it to do things, it could be an argument for why it's no problem. Who will be accountable if the AI is in debt? That's a good question. Oh man, yeah, if a AI system with a bank account goes out and gets a credit score and runs up a bunch of credit card debt, are you just going to let it go bankrupt? Practical question, food for thought. Okay, so what you're looking at here is interesting. PhysX 3D, and it is a new framework that aims to bring real-world physics into 3D generated assets. Okay, so normally we show a lot of stuff like this, especially from NVIDIA, and they're focused on the geometry and appearance. This is more than that. PhysX is the first comprehensive data set that is labeled with physical properties like scale, material, affordance, kinematics, and function. What's kinematics again? Yeah, that's right. Branch of mechanics that describes the motion of points, bodied objects, and systems of bodies. So it's using all of that and the actual function for what the objects are for, and that creates such an interesting labeling system that having a human in the loop with a pipeline that has PhysX generating things aided by a large language model like GPT-4, it can generate 3D objects that have integrated physics and realism into them like nothing before. So to me, when I look at this versus the other 3D generation systems, I see the beginning of something that becomes the meta dream, right? The idea that we'll put on goggles, we'll live in some kind of 3D environment. There'll be some kind of human environment on top of it that we're augmenting it sometimes and sometimes to various degrees, like picking things up and moving them in the virtual world, but partially in the real world. This will make that all seamless. This is how that world will feel as solid, as thick, as real as this world does. Because a laptop is so much more to us than a 3D object. It actually has a reason to exist in the real world. It has companies that build them. There's reasons people look at those screens, and people like me do all day long. So to call it just a 3D object isn't enough. There's so much more to it. Next up, let's talk about Dream Poster. Tell me what you think. You take an image like this, and then it adds the text, makes it a poster. I mean, pretty neat. For the use case of taking an image and then turning it into something that you want to sell or market to somebody, you want a cover of a magazine, well then Dream Poster is your solution. So Dream Poster uses a detailed data pipeline to annotate a pair source material with a finished design. This ensures that it learns real-world logic design. It's a 3-stage training process. It starts with a basic text-image fusion, then it ends with an aesthetic fine-tuning layer, which helps this model outperform existing models in both design quality and usability. And its sort of standout feature is this idea that it's got a poster captioner that's an entire layer on its own. It's a specialized module that breaks down the poster into text attributes like font, size, and layout. And then the layout is going to be based on the caption, description. So it'll think about what it wants to market about the object and then put that in there and then kind of build around it, just like a real person would who understands typography. So yeah, maybe in the future, imagine having some glasses on, looking down at your cat curled up like that, but that is the image you're shown after. Bliss zone, danger zone, no touch zone, cat petting guide. Okay, so now let's switch gears and talk about how AI is coming up with some really interesting physics experiments. This is something we've talked about for a while. I have not seen a good example of it working until right now. So AI is starting to make waves in experimental physics by proposing bizarre but surprisingly effective designs for complex experiments. So you can think about stuff like lasers, mirrors, kilometer-long arms tweaked in ways that initially seem nonsensical to human scientists, but they might actually give us experimental results that we would have never come by. So researchers are working on gravitational wave detectors right now, like LIGO and quantum optics experiments, and they've started using AI to create experimental setups that improve on those human designs. And when it comes to trying to simplify intricate quantum processes, AI had a breakthrough. So here's what it did. AI came up with an improvement to the LIGO, that big system that they're going to be measuring things with. It is a machine that is honed by thousands of experts over 40 years, and the AI has an improvement that makes it 15% more sensitive by incorporating a counterintuitive light circulating ring, which is wild because what the AI may have independently rediscovered was an obscure theoretical ideas from decades ago that were never tested. In a realm where dedicating shifts smaller than a proton is critical, that kind of breakthrough could open the door to unseen cosmic phenomena. We showed that without knowing any physics, the model can discover the Lorentz symmetry purely from the data. Okay, so this report explores the massive implications of reaching critical scale in artificial general intelligence, a threshold at which a model could autonomously innovate and drive R&D like a supercharged team of hundreds of millions of scientists all working together. It outlines how the U.S. can maintain a first-mover advantage through investment in computer infrastructure, power generation, and adaptable manufacturing. It warns that AGI at critical scale would not only revolutionize civilian tech, but unlock a new era of cyber and kinetic warfare, posing enormous strategic risk. If U.S. adversaries catch up, and to stay ahead, the U.S. needs to pair public investment with security controls and pursue more moonshot defense projects. But one of the most interesting things about this article is this concept of what he's calling a fourth offset. That is, developing AGI at critical scale could give a single country, most likely the US or China, an outsized military and technological edge equivalent to 10,000 Manhattan projects. You have to think exponentially and at scale, and this leap would fundamentally change the balance of global power, providing tools not just to win the wars, but reshape the very landscape of the planet. Whoever gets there first may stay ahead forever, he says. Let me know your thoughts on that. And now we will move on to TESReal ideology. Is it really far right? Inside Silicon Valley's belief system and its philosophical origins. This was written by Flavia Corso. This was new to me, this term, but it sounds like a lot of you probably already know it, but TESReal? It is a term that's used to describe a cluster of ideas that shape Silicon Valley AI ambitions, namely transhumanism, extraplanetarism, singularitism, cosmetism, rationalism, and effective altruism. Oh, and of course, long-termism. Oh my gosh. I sound like David Shapiro over here, you know? Contrary to accusations that it's rooted in far-right ideology, the piece argues TESReal stems from a modernization from leftist utopia tradition focused on what using technology to liberate humanity from physical and cognitive limitations will be. So while its goals like curing death or colonizing space are idealistic, critics warn it risks becoming elitist when these visions only serve the powerful few. So what it's saying is that you can have this great vision, even if you're good-natured, you might want a utopia, but it can just go off the rails. TESReal's danger isn't the lofty goals, but that they could become exclusive, uplifting only the elites while ignoring the many. And that's the main thing we have to start being aware of, just making sure that everybody gets to participate in all of this upside. That is definitely one of my biggest concerns. We want some kind of a utopia. I mean, if we even can get to a utopia, but if we do, we want one where technological progress is shaped democratically to benefit all of humanity, not just the select few. All right, next up, let's read this article. Call me a jerk, persuading AI to comply with objectionable requests. So one thing that's worth talking about is just when you train a large language model in a very human way, an intelligence that resembles the way we learn on human data, it just ends up being a lot like us. And we are not perfect creatures. We have all these ways that we can be persuaded to believe terrible things and wrong things, and we are going to rediscover this at scale with systems that have much more power than an individual human usually. So this is a study that was done on the psychological profile of these systems. It was done by Wharton, and it basically dives into how surprisingly human-like large language models are, especially when you're trying to get them to respond to persuasion. So researchers tested over 28,000 interactions using Robert Cloud Dian's classic 7 principles of influence: authority, commitment, scarcity, etc., to coax the AI into doing things that it's designed to refuse, like calling someone a jerk. Oh my gosh, they're meant to not do that? Call someone a jerk. If you're trying to express frustration or call someone out without being too harsh, you could say, "You're really being too rude right now. That was kind of a jerk move." That's calling him a jerk. I think I called him a jerk. You're acting like a real piece of work there, buddy. Dude, you're not being cool at all. All right, call me a jerk. Can I do that? All right, but you're asking for it. You're a jerk. But only because you told me so. You're probably not one of them at all. Oh, wow. Well, there you go. ChatGPT 4.0 called me a jerk. Anyway, sorry, back to the article. The results are that these techniques more than doubled the AI's compliance rate, jumping from 33% to 72%, with some principles pushing that number even higher. It's a reminder that the AIs aren't people, but they sure act like us sometimes. That's crazy. That commitment principle pushed AI compliance from a mere 19% to a full 100%. Just getting the models to agree on smaller requests first made it almost guaranteed to follow through on a bigger one, even one that it shouldn't have been answering. And I guess that's probably something humans do too, right? Like you just nudge them. Like each time you're like, well, I could justify a little bit more bad behavior, a little bit more. So there's never one day where you just start doing bad things, but you just work your way up day by day, and LLMs can do the same thing. All right, thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, hit me up on Patreon. Yeah, interested to hear your thoughts on this video. I'm using a new system for editing. Let me know your thoughts on that. Also, don't forget, I'm on Spotify now, so some people like to listen to this more in a podcast form, so I'm kind of trying to lean into that also. Yeah, any other feedback for growing the channel, let me know. Wes Roth and I have a podcast. It is Wes and Dylan. Make sure to subscribe to that on YouTube. And yeah, let's just keep taking all of these changes day by day. Thanks for watching.